Hello, this is Jay. Welcome to Forbidden Files. One mysteriously disappeared girl, one creepy, empty grave, thousands of human remains, and the mysterious holy she. These might sound like elements from a horror fiction. However, it actually is a mystery that has been haunting Italians for over 30 years. This is the disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi. July 11, 2019, 8:15 a.m., Teutonic Cemetery, Vatican. After the solemn prayer of the priest, a 15-member investigation team embarked on the excavation of the graves of Princess of Mecklenburg, Sophie von Hohenlohe and Princess Carlotta Federica. Excavating the 2 centuries-old princess graves was not for archaeological research, but for a girl who disappeared over 30 years ago. Emanuela Orlandi, after years of searching, her disappearance has become a major unsolved case that attracts attentions from both the public and medias. Will the 15-year-old girl Emanuela Orlandi, buried in these ancient graves for over 30 years? Let's go back to the beginning. The heroine of today's story, Emanuela Orlandi, was born in January 14, 1968. Orlandi was the fourth of the 5 kids in her family, all of whom lived in the Vatican City. Vatican was built on top of the Vatican Heights, in the northwest corner of Rome, the capital of Italy. It borders Italy in all 4 directions, a state within a state. Her father worked in the Vatican Bank and was close to the Pope John Paul II at the time. According to her brother Pietro Orlandi, they were allowed to play in the Vatican gardens. This privilege was beyond some ordinary kids. Orlandi loved music since childhood, joined the renowned St. choir at a young age. Music talent, beauty, and an outgoing personality made Orlandi a popular girl. But this beautiful girl disappeared from the sight of the world on the night of June 22, 1983. Let's take a look at what really happened that day. In June 1983, 15-year-old Orlandi finished her second year of high school in Rome and back to Vatican for summer vacation. During the vacation, she took flute lessons at Tommaso Ludovico da Vittoria School. She took bus to school and returned at dusk every day. June 22, 1983, 8 o'clock in the morning. About time to school, Orlandi seemed worried. She begged her brother, Pietro, for escorting her to school by bus. However, Pietro turned her down because he had asked friends out. Orlandi had to left home alone and never showed up again. On June 23rd, the anxious parents called the police as their daughter didn't come home all night. At first, the police thought that Orlandi was just staying at some friend's place, forgetting about the time, and should be home soon. However, after interrogating some of her schoolmates, the police realized that it was not that simple. Orlandi was late for school that day. She had to pass 5 stops from home before dropped off the bus near the school, then walk about 200 meters to get to school. But some students saw Orlandi was stopped by a black BMW car in this 200 meters long street. Orlandi had a long conversation with the one in car. Her schoolmates were too far away to have a clear look of his face. Orlandi didn't do well on her flute class that day. She seemed disturbed. She asked to leave early, in the middle of the class, like a completely different person. After class, on the bus home, Orlandi mentioned a job opportunity she was taking in a cosmetics company to her friend. After she got off the bus, Orlandi was last seen getting on a black BMW car, then vanished from the street of Vatican. Thursday, June 22nd, 20 hours after she disappeared, the police announced Orlandi a missing person. In the next 2 days, reports on Orlandi's disappearance were on every local major newspapers. June 25th, the Orlandis received a phone call from a young man called Pierluigi. He claimed that he had seen the girl at Navona Plaza that afternoon. This young man described the flute that Orlandi was carrying in details. and other details that match the missing girl. According to Pierluigi, Orlandi just had her hair cut, called herself Barbara, and was selling cosmetics. June 28, the Orlandis received another phone call from a man called Mario, who claimed to be a pub owner at Vatican. He said that he met a girl who called herself Barbara at his pub that day. During their conversation, she said that she had run away from home. Barbara said she would attend her sister's wedding. According to his description, this girl's features fit Orlandi perfectly, but this girl had left the bar and vanished. June 30th, the police searched the entire Rome. 3,000 posters printed with Orlandi's photo are pasted all over the city. With the simmering of Orlandi's disappearance, it finally arrived at the ears of the Pope. July 3, 1983, Pope John Paul II openly prayed that Orlandi can return safely in Vatican and called on people to help the police, but the Pope's public statement got no desired effect. Something unexpected happened. 2 days after John Paul I's statement, July 5th, the Orlandis received a horrifying phone call. The man in the phone said in a deep voice that they had kidnapped Orlandi. Mario and Pierluigi on the phone earlier were both his group members. They demand an exchange Orlandi for the arrested Mehmet Ali Agca. Mehmet Ali Agca was born in Turkey. He sneaked into St. Peter's Square on May 13, 1981, and attempted to assassinate John Paul II with a gun, who was meeting believers at St. Peter's Square, but failed. The assassin was captured by the guard red-handed, and the seriously injured John Paul II stayed in hospital until 1983. Later on, there are rumors about the Vatican Bank where Orlandi's father was working and had several hundred millions of deficits, and the long-corrupted Holy See was to blame. The new Pope, John Paul II, was set to investigate the corruption. Not long, he was assassinated. Things are getting complicated. If these rumors were true, then the innocent Orlandi might have got herself into a political intrigue. The police were following up on the anonymous caller because of his accent. The police called him the American. The Americans said that they would put a basket of flowers in the square near the parliament, in which proves that Orlandi was indeed in his hands. Her music school ID. That was an important lead, right when the police contacted the American. He vanished on October 27, 1983, and never called again. Agca, who was under custody, claimed that his assassination of the Pope was out of sheer personal discontent with the society. He denied being bribed by any organization. The police failed to get more information from Agca. December 1983, the recovered John Paul II himself visited Agca in prison. They had a face-to-face talk in a cell for 6 hours. They both kept the conversation a secret. In front of the media, no one ever knows what did they talk about. In 2005, an unidentified man had called an Italian TV program, claiming that Orlandi was buried in the grave of Enrico Di Pettis. The owner was a figure, an Italian gangster. In 2008, one of Di Pettis' ex-girlfriend verified this statement. She said that Di Pettis once told her that he had kidnapped Orlandi. But people failed to find any lead after investigating into his grave. In 2018, while repairing the foundation of the Vatican Embassy in Italy, a skeleton was found by workers. It shed a glimmer of hope to Orlandi's family, but later tests proved that these remains don't belong to Orlandi. From international terrorist to Italian gangster, even to the high level of Vatican, countless people were suspects. For 36 years, her family didn't find any useful leads. When people were about to give up, things had changed. It was March 2019. Orlandi's family received an anonymous letter. It wrote, "If you want her, search where the angel looks." The letter attached a picture of an angel statue inside the Teutonic cemetery. And the place where the angel looks is the graves of the two princesses. These two graves belong to Princess Sophie, who died in 1836, and Princess Carlotta, who died in 1840. It probably implied the exact location where Orlandi's body was buried. Moreover, it also mentioned that on the tomb wall there is a cherub holding a piece of parchment paper says "Rest in peace." Teutonic Cemetery locates where the Circus of Nero once stood, shaded by the St. Peter's Basilica. The cemetery is guarded by a Swiss guard and is not open to the public. As soon as they had the Holy See's permission, the authorities embarked on the excavation. The day when the graves were opened, heirs of the two princesses, Orlandi's family and lawyers, forensic experts and local police showed up. Forensic investigator opened the grave that the angle in the picture looks. Surprisingly, there neither was any trace of Orlandi's body, nor the supposedly existed remains of the 19th century German princesses left to empty graves. One mystery succeeds another. Scour the graves inch by inch. Beneath the graves, one investigator found a chamber that is covered with a slate. After the slate was cracked open, forensic investigator found two ossuaries that contain hundreds of pieces of human remains. According to George Portler, a geneticist who participated in the investigation, those remains belonged to dozens of people. After a more detailed DNA test, George concluded that those remains do not belong to Orlandi. Though failed on finding Orlandi, George Portler found something wrong on those remains. Blunt injuries were found on those remains. They were probably tortured or sacrificed before death. This reminds people of John Paul I's faint hint, saying that there was a strong evil in the altar. But after John Paul I's death in 2005, these secrets will never to be known to the public. Right after the new Pope Francis's inauguration, Pietro, Orlandi's brother, had a short visit with him. During the conversation, Pope Francis told him, "Emanuele Orlandi is in the heaven." Pietro said that his words froze my blood. He then requested several times for meeting the Pope to get further explanation, but failed. He believes that from John Paul II to the Pope Francis are aware of the truth, but the truth would cause serious damage to the Holy See's image, so they've been trying to keep it from exposure. For over 30 years, the disappearance of Orlandi are dimly connected to the Vatican Holy See. For decades, her brother Pietro Orlandi never gave up on finding Orlandi. On the street that his little sister disappeared, he walked for 1,000 times. He recalled, frustrated, that if on June 22, 1983, he didn't turn down his sister's request, but escort her to school, none of these would happen. But time doesn't go back. Now, some people still believe that Orlandi is alive. Every year, prayers are held in Vatican, hoping that the flute girl can be home safe and sound.